This is the Benefits Buzz Podcast, your weekly pulse on what's happening in the world of employee benefits. Brought to you by your friends at WEX, who believe in simplifying benefits for everyone. Now listen up and let's get buzzed. Hey everyone, you know what time it is. It is time for another episode of Benefits Buzz. I'm your host, Eric Pila. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Kelsey Burgad. Kelsey, we are well on our way into our fourth season. I think we're nearing episode 25 or 26 as we record this, which is like 3 times as many episodes as we did in previous seasons. But we're having so much fun and we're on a good roll. And I'm excited for this week's topic and this episode around analytics. Now, I know that word can like freak people out a little bit.
It freaks me out sometimes.
It's true. Let's be honest with ourselves. We're all a little freaked out about it. But when it comes down to it, when we're talking about benefits, really the power of analytics can be really, really eye-opening. For what reason? To understand how your employees are really using the benefits that you offer. And we saw some stat, Hayden, our producer, pulled this up. I'm going to read it here. 2/5 of workers right now are more likely than they were a year ago to consider a new job that offers better benefits, right? So people are super honed in, the great resignation, as they're calling it now, on their job and their benefits. And I think it's smart for HR pros to understand how are employees using benefits? Am I offering the right benefits? And the beauty is analytics tells us all of that. So it's going to be a fun one.
It is. I'm so excited to have our guest today.
Yeah, it's Mary, our coworker Mary. I love talking over you, Kelsey, by the way. I'm so used to introducing her guests.
I'm just used to at this point at 26 episodes in. But, I really like how when you announce somebody, you do it in a way where I feel like I'm one of the people on Space Jam, because my son's really into Space Jam right now. So I feel like I'm like walking into an NBA stadium. Yeah. So I'll let you announce our guest because you're so good at it.
It's like you're coming out of a tunnel. Well, our guest in today's episode is Mary Whitaker. She's a senior product manager of analytics here at WEX. Mary, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, we're pumped you are here as well. And like I said, analytics can sometimes come off as, this, kind of sludge you have to sift through. But the beauty is in what the benefits analytics tell us. And I want to start with that. Maybe let's what's this deal? Like, why do you think people are so scared of analytics? Again, Hayden does a good job. You said 90% of Americans are anxious on some level about math. And Kelsey already admitted to it when the podcast started. What's the deal with this? Why do you think there's this angst when it comes to analytics and data?
I think it's because numbers can be scary, right? And they can be hard to understand. So if you get a spreadsheet with a bunch of columns and a bunch of numbers, it's really hard at first to make sense of them. And so I think that people should think about analytics as just a story that's told with numbers. And the best analytics are actually put into visualizations. And it's much, much easier to understand a picture than it is a spreadsheet. And so I think it's, the best analytics do tell that story. They answer questions, and all you need to do is just make sure that you have good visualizations, and they're just much easier to understand.
That's such a great way of putting it. I mean, I think the reason I am scared of analytics is because it is math related. And I think for me, math is so black and white, right? But I think one thing I will say when it comes to analytics is I am so thankful for people like you, Mary, who are analytics experts and are math gurus, because I will never be that, and I'm okay with not being that. So tell me, what kind of a difference does good benefit analytics provide for those HR pros that are listening today?
So first of all, the picture tells the story. So HR folks have a really tough job. They are needing to understand how their employees use analytics. They need to be able to make decisions about where to put, scarce resources. They need to be able to answer questions from leadership and make recommendations. And so analytics can help with all of those things. And the big difference is that, as they're making those decisions, they can feel really confident about that because those decisions are backed by data. And the other thing is, I think it makes a really big difference, again, to have that picture, because if you have a picture, then it's not scary numbers. It's, for example, if an HR person wanted to understand well, how are my employees utilizing a specific account, like an HRA, over time? And they can look at, a bunch of numbers, or they can see a graph. And it's really easy to understand the graph. You can see where the line goes. Is it going up? Is it going down? And so that makes it really, really easy for them to get those answers to the questions, and then, make those decisions that are tough.
Yeah, I love that, because it's so funny, because when I said the word data in the intro, I immediately have this connotation of this like disgustingly gross Excel spreadsheet, right? And there's a small population, when you say spreadsheets, they get a giant smile on their face, but there's a large population, and I'm speaking for HR pros, probably out of turn here, but a lot of them aren't necessarily like that. And so I love your idea of like, right, numbers and data is really just a story. And the more visual we can make those analytics, the better, because it's a lot easier for us to enjoy, to consume, as well as to tell the story to any other stakeholders that might need to be interested in what we're seeing with their benefit usage. And that brings me to my next question is, who else should care? Besides, right? I mean, when you talk about analytics and you talk about the power of that story, I'm sure there's more, parties or stakeholders at an organization that might find that useful. So who else would dig having that at their fingertips?
Well, a couple of areas. So first, finance. Of course, finance is going to care a lot about benefit analytics, because they are the ones that really maintain the budget, and they want to make sure, and oftentimes health benefits are a very large portion of any company's budget. So I think finance really cares about analytics, leadership, of course, and someone else, which is the actual employee. I mean, they like to understand sometimes how are they using their, what's going on with their account, are they like other people? And, just analytics, I think, can be good for many areas across the company.
Yeah, I mean, just having the story, like you said, to back up the assumptions that we make about, like, are our benefits good? Are they quality? Do our employees enjoy our benefits? Those types of things, actually having the data to support the story, especially when these, HR pros are going to, the CFO to ask for budget for things like this, having that data to back it up, I'm sure makes the conversation a lot easier.
Yes,
So let's
exactly.
dig a level deeper. What are some common types of benefit analytics that these employers can rely on when they are having those conversations or making those decisions?
Gotcha. Well, first, it's enrollment, right? HR folks really want to make sure that they understand what's happening with enrollment for a couple of reasons, right? They want to, that's the story of what benefits employees are electing. So they really want to understand who's taking what, but they operationally, right, they want to make sure that those enrollment analytics tie to their new hires or their layoffs, and making sure that that's correct. The other thing is that if there's a story about enrollment and their enrollment has gone way up and their healthcare costs have gone way up, they can, take a look and say, oh, well, is healthcare gone up because we have greater volume of people using them? And so on a per person basis, we're paying more because we have more people, or, our healthcare costs going up for some other reason. So, there's enrollment. I think substantiation rates and claims payment rates, I think, are really, really important, because, the more easily and faster that claims are paid and substantiated, then that means employees are happier because their providers are getting paid more quickly, and the providers are happier because they're getting paid as well. And then if their employees are happy, then the HR folks are happy because they're getting less, it's less friction for everyone. One more that I think is a really good one is technology adoption. So, are your employees using mobile apps? Are they logging in to the consumer portal? Because I think those are really good indicators of how, the level of knowledge that an employee has about their benefits, and, do they know how to use them and get the most advantage from them? So I think those are some others that are those are all really important ones that I think if an HR manager has them, it gives them a fuller picture of what's going on with their benefits.
Yeah, I like to pick on my family a lot, but I have a family member who shall remain nameless, who is enrolled in a benefit that we offer, but they're not enrolled in it with us. and they didn't even know that they had a mobile app, didn't even know they had a debit card, didn't know how to use it. And I'm like, oh, that technology adoption. If only, if only their HR person knew. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I love, those are all awesome examples. I kind of wanted you to keep going, but so I'm going to challenge you then, Mary. Like, we talked about storytelling, right? Like, make this tangible for our listeners. Can you give us like a scenario, like from start to finish? What would something this look like where maybe, maybe there was a common question they might have, or a scenario or a thing where benefit, the analytics they might have at their fingertips could help resolve or provide more intel.
Gotcha. So I think a common pain point across all HR folks is when employees don't understand their benefits, or they're having problems with their benefits, and they come to HR. And so HR spends a lot of time answering those questions, or calling on behalf of the employee. And so analytics, I think, can really help, using some of the analytics that I just described. So for example, if an employee comes to someone with a question, you can take a look and say, well, gee, so how come I thought I did all this education? How come my employees this seems like a common question or an answer that they should have. How come they don't have it? And then if you look and you see that, very few people are logging into the consumer portal, well, maybe you would want to do some education or basic instruction to say, this is how you log into the consumer portal. Because not only, is the portal a place to get things done, right? Submit claims or, track what's going on, but there's a lot of information on those portals. So, lots of answers to questions. And then if people are going and self-serving answers to those questions, and they're not going to HR, and that's saving HR time, and they have more time then to spend on the bigger picture and more on the strategic questions of, what benefits do they offer? And
you're speaking to the hearts of everyone in HR right now.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly. So yeah, I would say that's the most common, right? The most very common pain point.
I love it. It's a perfect example. Thanks for bringing that up. And I think you're right, Kelsey. Like, I think everyone that's listening is like, less questions, tell me more. And I think it's right. Good advice, listening to the type of questions you might be getting that are indicators of where that information, right, could live or does reside, and how do I continue to educate, or how do I need to get more info in my hand so that I can better answer that or know why that person's having those questions. So I appreciate that example. That's awesome. Another question I've got, kind of queued up in advance here that I want to throw at you. What about, HR pros are a little busy. We talked about this revolving door of questions they get. How often should they be checking in, like on their analytics and benefit usage? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? What's based on what you've seen? What's your recommendation? So, of course, it depends. And it really depends on that question that they want answered, right? Or what they're looking for. So, for example, if they have just rolled out a campaign or messages to employees encouraging them to adopt the mobile app or to go visit the consumer portal, then they might want to log in weekly, right? To see how, did those messages or those campaigns result in someone going and logging on, right? So that might be more frequently. On the other hand, if they really want to be able to see if they've implemented a high deductible health plan with an HSA, and they want to understand over time, are employees saving more than they're spending, or they just want to understand employee saving and spending habits, then you might want to have, maybe you would want to check less frequently, right? Check on a quarterly basis or a yearly basis. The best analytics, again, would allow you to do any of those things, right? Regardless of how frequently you check it, you can look at it, from different time periods, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly.
Yeah, that's great feedback. And I think, you touched on something. It's really important too, that if these HR professionals are so busy and they're spending time putting together these educational campaigns. So let's say, they're getting a lot of questions on how do I log into my mobile app? They do a campaign or like a communication plan around logging into the mobile app to be able to actually back that up and say, I was successful in this campaign because they can see it in the analytics. I mean, that's a win. But you said something else that, caught my attention, and you said all of the best analytics would have that. How can an employer determine, are their benefit analytics up to snuff? Like, are they good, or are they kind of lackluster? What are some indicators of quality benefit analytics versus something that's just okay?
Well, first of all, when you log in, right, and you're looking at common analytics like counts of employees or enrollments, that those numbers seem accurate to you. So I'd say first step is the data accurate? And so that's the first step. The second really is around the flexibility of the tool. You know, does it enable you to answer that first question that you have? And then of course with, you know, I don't know about anyone else, but as soon as I ask one question and I get an answer, then I have another one and another one and another one. So the answer to one question spurs another one. And so you need a tool that's going to have enough flexibility to be able to answer that question, or help you answer the questions that you're getting from your boss. And so I would say that's the second piece of it. The other, which I touched upon at the beginning, is that it's really easy to understand. You know, there can be analytics out there that's very complex, or just hard to understand. And I think it's just got to be simple, you know, really simple, easy to use, have guidance about how to use it, you know, and have visualizations that are very easy and make it easy to tell, you know, to recognize those patterns in behavior that you want to understand about your employees.
Yeah, for sure. Especially the people like me who I don't love math and analytics. I need a graph that is like so simple for me. So I think that's a really good indicator for sure. What are your thoughts on benchmarking then? Because I know probably some analytics offer benchmarking, and I work really closely with benefit consultants, and I feel like that's a really common question that we get is, do you have any benchmarking on X, Y, or Z? So is that another thing that you would maybe consider really quality analytics versus maybe okay?
For sure. Yes. I mean, absolutely. You know, benchmarks are important and I think helpful for HR folks because they can, you know, get a sense of how they're doing, and for a company of their size or their industry, you know, what are the benefits that they're offering, and is that competitive with other companies like them? Because, you know, a lot of benefits are offered so that they can attract and retain good employees, and so they want to make sure they're up to snuff. And so I think a good benchmark would help them tremendously to do that.
That's great.
For sure.
Thanks for providing a measuring stick, right? Because it's kind of like, I don't know, I think that guy was okay, but that's great. It's good to call out some examples of quality benefit analytics, which is great. Well, as this podcast is going to air, it's going to be open enrollment season, and I can't help but ask the question then, Mary, when it comes to benefit analytics, is there anything they should be paying attention to as we draw near to open enrollment? Any of those data points that would be really good to keep an eye on?
Yeah. So of course, you know, as open enrollment season comes around, there are decisions being made, right, and negotiations to be had upon renewal. So having as complete a picture as possible around what's going on with your benefits, I think is really, really important. So just, you know, arm yourself with that information as you go into these conversations. The second thing is, you know, you really want to understand utilization. So if you're offering an HRA, for example, and then you find out that, you know, employees really aren't using it, you know, you allocated a certain amount of money for HRA reimbursement, and then very few people are actually using it, but you know people are using healthcare. So what's going on with that? So I think understanding utilization as you come into open enrollment is really important, because then, you know, what happens with open enrollment? People have to elect their benefits, and that's when a lot of the education happens, and that's when people are paying more attention to that education. So I think it's just, you know, using the data that's available to you, so that you can have a clear picture on what's happening, will help you make those decisions. If you're considering benefit changes, you'll be able to do so, you know, feeling confident that you're doing it because you understand what's happening. If you need to, you know, plan out an education strategy, then again, you understand how employees are using, what they're using, if they're using it, are they logging into the portal? You can do that. So again, I think it's just really important to have as much data at your fingertips around open enrollment season for sure.
Absolutely. Such good tips, because what better way to know what to really hone in on during open enrollment specific to each product than by using your analytics to tell you where maybe we're falling short right now. So we need to beef up communication on, you know, X, Y, or Z. So very good stuff. Any final tips regarding benefit analytics? Anything else employers should keep in mind?
I think ultimately, it's really important to just not let them intimidate you, and to realize that they work for you. And so, you know, this is information that you should be able to get at your fingertips, and it should be easy to understand. and to not and to look for those pictures that tell the story, because it's those pictures that are going to reveal the patterns, and it's patterns that will enable you to make those decisions, those strategic decisions about what you want to offer and how your employees are using their analytics. And as you're making those decisions and you're making recommendations to leadership to ask for that budget for benefits, then you can feel really, really confident because it's backed up by data.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that tip. That's great. What a great way to close it out. And we rarely do this on our podcast, but I know that WEX has put a lot of thought into benefit analytics, and we've put together a lot of research in a white paper, and we'll include that in our show notes. Every once in a while, I just have to work it in. But
Eric has shameless plugs.
I have to, right? Because I think there may be a lot of people still thinking, okay, what should I be expecting? Do I have what's good or what's not good? Goes back to our conversation. So I'm okay with giving a shameless plug here or there. So check it out. It's in the show notes. We've got a really good info and I think it's just a great follow-up to this conversation. If this has piqued your interest about what you have and what you're looking at, good next action item for you. Mary, awesome. What a fun episode on analytics. I appreciate you making it really easy to digest for myself particularly. And I know all of our listeners, it's been great talking through what to expect, how to leverage analytics and making them your best friend and tell the story of what's working within your employee set. So thank you so much for being a guest.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. WEX is in the business of simplifying benefits for everyone. Now, although we certainly hope our podcast sparks some aha moments, like that was pretty cool, but of course we cannot provide legal, investment, or financial advice. And, well, therefore, nothing shared in this podcast should be interpreted as such. We encourage you to seek out appropriate professional advice regarding your plans. Hey, congratulations! You made it through our disclaimer. Thanks for listening.